Hello fellow wanderers, I'm your Arbiter and welcome to the Wanderer's Expanse. So a while ago, I left for a bit of fresh air and I happened to stumble upon this place called the American Museum of Natural History. And I have to say, it was a pretty fun trip. Oh yeah, baby. Get it through your thick skull!
Literally disintegrated.
Since I can't really cover everything in an entire museum, I thought I'd cover a few different topics that I wanted to learn more about. So we'll do some various shorter segments this episode, as well as some bits I just want to throw in there.
Now, let's get started with the AMNH lightning round.
Roll the tape. Petrified wood. Why is it so scared? I'll tell you why. The answer is permineralization. Yeah. Be afraid. Permineralization is a type of fossilization that occurs when groundwater carrying minerals permeates organic matter for a long period of time. When an organism dies, its body is usually torn apart by scavengers and the elements. This doesn't really leave much in the way of intact and articulated bones. But if the conditions are right, like if the body is quickly covered by sediment after its death, then it can protect the organism and preserve more of its original form. Now I know what you're gonna say, okay? But he was already dead. Probably. The groundwater that then seeps into the ground also seeps into the dead organism, carrying minerals that, over time, are deposited and harden, essentially recreating the shape of the organic tissue, but made of solid rock. This process is known as permineralization, or petrifaction. Of course, it's most effective on harder and more robust organic tissues that are around longer anyways, like bones. Some of the main minerals involved in permineralization include silicates, carbonates, and pyrites. And yep, that's pyrite as in iron pyrite. Indeed, some fossils are actually made of fool's gold, and may have a shiny texture too. As I was walking through the AMNH, I was pleasantly surprised to see my old friend the coelacanth more than once. We used to get up to such trouble back in the day. Like that time with the neutron star explosion. Now, you may have heard of coelacanths before, but in case you haven't, they're a lineage of lobe-finned fish that have been around for quite a while. They were thought to have gone extinct with the dinosaurs, but were surprisingly rediscovered off the coast of southern Africa in 1938. A bit like if Elvis was rediscovered alive today. Because of this, they're often called a living fossil, since they supposedly haven't changed much in 66 million years. However, that's not really the case. In fact, even compared to their ancestors from the Cretaceous, modern coelacanths are actually quite different, being larger and having a different shape, with notable differences in their head, fin structure, and overall anatomy. So while their group, Sarcopterygii, did appear fairly early, around 400 million years ago in the Devonian, it doesn't mean they haven't changed or evolved, and modern species shouldn't be considered old or primitive by any means. Today, coelacanths live at depths of up to 2,300 feet below the surface. The largest of them can reach up to 6.5 feet and almost 200 pounds as well. Ironically, their backbone is a bit lacking in bone, so instead they have a notochord, a fluid-filled tube that supports them. They also have an electrosensory organ on their snout, which is thought to help them locate prey in the dark depths. After catching up with the coelacanth for a bit, I continued into the Hall of Ocean Life. Along the way, I saw this blue whale, of course the largest creature on Earth, reaching up to 100 feet long. Now, that number can be really hard to get a sense of scale from, so to make things easier, here's my hand for reference. Also, I can't prove it, but I feel like this fish was judging me. As I continued walking through the museum, I encountered some fairly interesting characters. Man, that thing is huge! They should call it the really biggest or something. Oh, what's wrong, buddy? Why the long face? Until I finally encountered this guy. This is moschops, a dinocephalian from the Permian period. And let's just say we got to talking and we had a bit of a disagreement. No, I keep telling you, you put cereal in before the milk, and furthermore, a hot dog is just a hot dog! Get it through your thick skull! Dinocephalians were a group of therapsids, which were some of the earliest ancestors of mammals. A key trait of therapsids was their legs being positioned more directly under their hips, unlike the reptiles of the time, as well as being synapsids like modern mammals. Moschops was a large herbivore, at over 2 meters long with weight estimates between 300 and 400 kilograms on average. Now, about what I was saying earlier. Get it through your thick skull! While it definitely wasn't winning any beauty pageants, Moschops' uniquely shaped skull is thought to have had a purpose, specifically headbutting. moschops had a skull with an unusual amount of rounded, dense bone at the top of its head, sometimes called the frontal parietal shield. While we don't know for sure how it used this domed head, it's possible it used it against other moschops. In nature today, headbutting behaviors like this can take on several forms, from full-on collisions in rams to something more like shoving in warthogs. So in moschops, they may have had similar behaviors, pushing each other or headbutting their flanks for territories or mates. I mean that, or they just really had huge brains. Yeah, probably not. Looking at the inside of the skull of moschops, we actually see it may have had protection around the brain against impacts. Not only that, but looking at the position of the semicircular canals, we can see it probably held its head more downwards, like a cow. This could have aided in foraging and possibly in absorbing force from impacts during headbutting. Oh, yeah, the semicircular canals are the arches inside your inner ear, right next to the evil snail. They help orientate the head and maintain balance, so they're often used in determining what the resting position of the head is. So, after a quick discussion, moschops and I decided to settle this in a reasonable and well-mannered way. But then I thought, well, where's the fun in that? So now, we're gonna settle this like moschops! Ha! After walking around a bit more and getting briefly sidetracked in the cetacean section. Oh yeah, baby! Ooh, Andrew Sarkis. I eventually made my way to meteorites and gems and minerals. Man, the beauty of nature. I kinda thought it'd be a bit bigger though. Alright, time for a quick rundown on some names, since I didn't know the difference either. An asteroid is any large rocky or metallic object orbiting the sun, while a meteoroid is any smaller rocky or metallic object. The cutoff between the two seems to be about at a meter. Whenever either one of these enters the Earth's atmosphere, it becomes a meteor. What's it meteor then? I don't know. If it doesn't get
literally disintegrated
by the friction with Earth's atmosphere, a process known as ablation, then it gets the honor of being a meteorite. This stone makes me really hungry for some reason. Finally, I happened upon the gemstones, totally didn't touch this cool pillar, and found... Wait a second. Those are a ruby and a sapphire, and as it turns out, they're actually formed from the same mineral, corundum, which is actually the second hardest mineral on Earth behind diamond. Now to heavily summarize, corundum can form through either igneous or metamorphic processes. As a general rule, you want rocks with low silica as well as high aluminum, as corundum is also known as aluminum oxide. When making gems and minerals, it's a bit like baking a cake, except it's magma. You can't eat it. In igneous, or melted rocks, crystals, like all minerals, form from free-floating elemental ions that cling together and form stable shapes as the magma cools. Heat, pressure, and time are all important, with larger crystals being the result of magma that cools slower. If you've got the right mix of elements and cool your magma just right, you've got your crystal. In metamorphic rocks, the right heat and pressure can cause pre-existing structures to break down and form new structures. In some cases, chemical changes can also occur, bringing in or taking away certain elements, causing new changes to the rock, a process known as metasomatism. In nature, all the minute variances of these factors and the order in which they happen produce the astonishing variety of rocks we see all around us. Which is my way of saying, man, geology is complicated. Well, I think that about wraps things up. In all honesty, I love going to museums, so while I can't get out much, you know, maintaining the void and all, it was a really nice experience. I'd recommend going sometime if you're able.
Thus concludes our lightning round.
Thanks so much for watching. If you've watched this far and enjoyed, consider subscribing to not miss future adventures. As always, I'm not an expert, but I try to research the best of my abilities and share what I've learned with all of you. Sources are down below. As always, I've been your Arbiter, and thanks for visiting the Wanderer's Expanse. Go fish. No, I meant him.